film in question we will be reviewing is One Piece Film Z, which comes off of the high horse of One Piece Strong World. The date was actually December 15th, 2012, directed by a man whose name I'm about to butcher, Tatsuya Namaime, and also scripted by Asumo Suzuki. But most importantly, the executive producer was Eiichiro Oda himself. With Strong World not having real estimates of how much it actually cost, but we can guesstimate from at least Film Red's cost of $15 million, because with Strong World, it earned a good $49 million worldwide. As for Film Z, it earned $74 million globally. One Piece audience were now appropriately introduced to the new world around 2011. This is when the time skip happened. Obviously enough, the characters that I find the most amusing within this film is Luffy and Zed. All the other side characters are nice, but they're just icing on top of the cake. Aokiji is definitely the refrigerator that keeps this thing ice cold. But the philosophical weight of what it means to become Pirate King and what being a pirate actually means is instilled not only within Luffy, but even the main antagonist Zed. Don't forget that there's a handful of other side characters that also embody this very notion as well, the idea of dreams and all that kinds of whimsy stuff. But I know you One Piece fans are already used to this kind of dialogue coming from any YouTuber that talks about One Piece. But off of the Marineford War and going into the new world, the series would always be as jokey and non-serious as it could be, where this movie, with a different director and a different writer altogether, took a more serious stance and approach towards the story of One Piece unlike ever before. Don't get me wrong, all the One Piece zaniness is still present within this film, but it's also got a lot of grounded moments that actually gives it a lot more levity and weight than the actual series. But now, here's where my more controversial opinions start to manifest. I think that all of this is incredibly stupid. The fact that Usopp and many of the other Straw Hats are just normal people that could probably be gunned down with one simple bullet somehow are just as alive as Luffy is. Double that on with the fact that Luffy is the only one as old as he is with a crew like his that's out there making this happen. There's no other Luffy like Luffy, if that makes any sense. Sure, in the original series, there are people that are on Luffy's rank, but I'm talking about pure age and relatability factor. And also too, I find Luffy's goal absolutely retarded. Becoming king of the pirates. What does that really mean? Is he not already king of the pirates? Does he consider himself king of the pirates every time he deliberately destroys a king of the sea, which might as well be a pirate? Or you could just start coming up with your own theories, because there's never an answer to that kind of question. Backed with the fact that, honestly, if Luffy ended up losing his crew, what exactly would he have to fight and go on in this journey of becoming king? Yeah, Zed points it out as a question that never actually gets fulfilled, but we honestly already have this question answered for us within the series. And truthfully, this was actually kind of traumatizing for me, because Luffy has always been the kind of kid, regardless to the circumstance, regardless to the mission, and regardless to the setback, failure and just refusal to follow your dreams was never an option until then. Either way, let's do a quick plot synopsis to get the full understanding of how the story actually operates and unfolds. So Zed gets access to this kind of blow up kind of weapon, and he blows up a giant island that's basically a volcano, and of course he's trying to get stopped by Kizaru, but Kizaru, yeah, okay, I'm really trying to watch out for this copyright. Luffy and the crew were hanging out, but they find a bunch of volcanic ash, and then they find Zed on the side of the ocean, where Zed proceeds to beat up their butts because he finds out that they're pirates, like no shit. And this basically starts the first countdown of when Luffy loses against Zed, with the Straw Hats having to retreat and learning that Zed actually took the names of a lot of other pirates, not killing them but crushing their dreams. And don't worry, that is not the only criminal act that is reprehensible about this film, because we now are going to age Nami down and create a lolly out of her. And for all those who are going gushy-eyed over Nami and her de-aging process, I got a special place for you, and that's, well, I guess it can't be that bad, right? 8 years old? Oh heck no. Here, we're gonna give you a kana to hold on to. At least this is older than 18. Yeah, you know how I love my freaking lollies. In the weird way? I guess, maybe. But in Nami's case, you know, it's whatever. I mean, she's kind of like a sister at this point. And yeah, even Chopper and apparently Baroque, out of all people, get aged down. And of course Robin, but you honestly can't even tell. But then after that fiasco, we then go to another island, not to save it, but instead to gather information on where Zed is. But as for the Straw Hats, they're very one note and they're very simple. They kind of exist as background fodder for the sake of the audience's ears. So they're not really all that bad, but they're not really really all that good either. But the only real consistent side characters that are actually really important is just one, Aokiji. After his great fight with another admiral, we know the one, it's left him in a difficult and very frustrating state. He doesn't exactly know what alliance he really belongs to. He's not exactly a pirate in a traditional sense, but he's also not a marine. He's not a government official, but he's not really all that super rogue. At least by this point, he's the essence of a man who has finally detached himself of the organization that he believes so strongly in, but after that detachment, he's become lost. Although despite that detachment, he still holds strong towards his morals. If you don't see yourself as someone who believes in everything that it is to be a pirate, and you don't really exactly believe in the justice system on everything that it promotes, and hell, you don't even think about going against it, where exactly do you stand in all this? And in fact, I feel like Aokiji is sort of a surrogate for the audience. Wait, maybe we might have our first moderate, or never mind, he joined Blackbeard later on. Hey, you can't blame an N-word for trying, right? Amongst the second fight between Luffy and Zed, and maybe a couple of the other crewmates, we come to find out that Zed has access to a Sea Prism Stone bullet. Like, bullshit, you guys don't make those as much as you should. What the hell? Like, how does Zed have access to all this stuff? And no other Marine has access to a... Yeah, that would be very handy. Who, in this movie, has a whole robotic arm made out of Sea Prism Stone. And this is where I guess I could explain Devil Fruits, even though this is a One Piece video, and by this point, you should already be invested. Devil Fruits in this world give you what's the equivalent of superpowers, but at the cost of your ability to swim, and any touch to seawater kind of nullifies or weakens your Devil Fruit powers, and if you're submerged in water, even to your ankles, you're getting weakened. I know, the irony. But that's not the only thing that's interesting about Zed. Zed is stone cold and hard on his goal to destroying the era of pirates. But essentially, this ends up with the island being destroyed and the Straw Hats having to regroup to finally put an end to Zed and his plans once and for all. Not for that very specific reason though, but rather just to age up our characters and retrieve the Straw Hat. But within this last showdown, after Luffy has licked his wounds, he now has to contend with the fact that they will be going up against not only Zed and his men, but as well as the actual Marines. But it's with me coming back to rewatch this movie that I've come to realize that, to me, One Piece, in my adult age now, is pretty dumb. It's pretty ridiculous. It's literally the story of a pirate boy with nothing more than his fisticuffs going against the world government. That idea is pretty infectious in itself, but the way in how Luffy actually acquires this dream, to me, seems pretty dumb. If I think about it now, everything just kind of falls into Luffy's place. He's got a lot of connections to higher people and higher status areas that keeps him really far away from a lot of dangers that could kill him right off the spot. And even when those characters actually catch up with Luffy and should kill him, he always ends up alive from critical injuries, like that one from Crocodile. Yeah, just like that line from Frieza in Dragon Ball Z Abridged, I could have sworn I hit a lung.
No, seriously, you have no idea how old that got.
Now, I am not going to lie. I really do still love this series, and I loved it back then for the very simple idea, and it had nothing to do with the philosophical weight nor the politics. It was just as simple as me seeing Luffy, the goofiest pirate boy that there ever lived, punch the ever-living crap out of the big adults that were mean to everybody. But I did come to realize as the arrival of this movie came out in 2012 that the shift of villains I would find to become kind of boring. This was around the time that I ended up falling off of One Piece, because a lot of the One Piece anime wasn't dubbed after Sky Island. Now, I still made it a point to watch every other episode afterwards, but it was honestly a blur to me, because none of the other villains actually stood out the same way that the other villains stood out prior. It's clear and evident to say that the villains in the past, their philosophical weight could be carried and you could understand it as a simple viewer, even if you were a child. That's how well it was done. The thing that made me mad with Arlong is that he wanted to take Nami's ability to draw, and he wanted Nami to draw things for him, which Nami didn't want to do, and Nami was abused for all of her life drawing everything that he wanted her to draw. Crocodile was a little bit more boring, and yes, I'm skipping over a good plethora of villains, but hear me out here. He was the true first villain that gave Luffy the actual gift of failure. Each and every time, he was just way more superior. He wasn't really that cool of a villain in any kind of philosophical sense. No, he was just a hurdle that had to be jumped over a total of 3 times. Each time bringing Luffy on the brink of death, with Luffy actually being able to defeat him in the coolest best way ever, nullifying his devil fruit power with nothing like a magic system, but rather Luffy's dumb stupidity in regards to never giving up, but not really realizing that, yeah, water was the way to go, but even when that didn't work, Luffy still used his blood to defeat Crocodile. And then simply Anaru. That moment made my entire arc, I'm sorry. But a lot of the other One Piece villains from this point were kind of hit and miss with me. And as far as what I see, Luffy is kind of just lucky. He's privileged to have his crew, because even if he does deal with them in an increment kind of style, he's always going to have either backups or replacements. I'm looking at you, Sabo. Now, of course, I wasn't thinking all of this back in 2012, but I'm definitely thinking about it now, because I'm an adult, and I've lost a lot of things, and a lot of relationships, they just crumble. It's just the way of how it goes. But if you're Luffy, the relationships that you make will hold strong forever. But you know what? I don't hate this film. I still love it for what it represents through the villain, and I understand that my place in the sun is completely gone. Luffy is for young and starry-eyed bright children that are waiting to become adults themselves. He's meant to inspire young kids at the age of 12 or whatever I was when I first watched this film. I mean, hell, Luffy's 19 now, and his brother Ace died at like 23 or something. I'm 26. What does that mean for me? God, it's almost like he's some kind of guy. But now we finally come to Zed. Long ago, he doesn't really matter that much, I guess, but there was a man known as Gold Roger, the king of the pirates, and when he was assassinated and turned into a martyr, those damn bastards, out of that created the pirate era when someone asked him, "Hi, where's your treasure?"
It's, somewhere out there, you just gotta look for it.
And thus, every citizen can then thank the world government for restarting the pirate era all over again. Thank you, you bastards. So basically, our main protagonist wants to be the Mr. Beast of the pirate world. Will the main characters find the treasure known as One Piece in this long 30-year epic? I really don't care. And honestly, I don't even think the main character cares as well. It's the emotions that you get wrapped up into. At this point, he kind of just uses it as an excuse in order to live his life. Honestly, that's as simple as what the treasure really is. It's basically freedom. And what other people end up doing with their freedom is totally dependent on where their idealism takes them. In all sense, here we have Zed, a pirate who is none other than stark opposite of Luffy in regards to the fact that he has lost a lot in his life. He has lost so much, in fact, to the point where he literally will go kamikaze and suicide the entire new world, including all the citizens and regular innocent people that live there. But here's the funny part, he doesn't really consider himself a pirate. In fact, he's known as the Neo Marines, a group of Marines that basically individualized themselves and separated themselves from the main body of power. He's going rogue, simply because for as much as this government agent was actually doing a lot of good for the Marines and was actually one of the most powerful Marines there was, who would go on to train even the most strongest Marines that we know to this day. Well, it turns out after the death of his family and his very crewmen at the hands of a certain type of pirate, that pirate got pardoned by the world government, which left Zed in a blaze. Essentially taking justice into his own hands, he plans to rid the world, of course, of piracy, which stands opposed to our main character Luffy, because this is what Luffy stands for, being a pirate, doing whatever he wants to do. But it would come to turn out Zed's pretty much doing the same thing. But at the end of this movie, when it finally comes towards the showdown between Luffy and Zed, they come to see that they're very alike, but not just that. You know how this anime has a bunch of superpowered bad guys and good guys? Well, near the end, they get so tired that they just start brawling it out, which I thought was very satisfying. Ever since the beginning of the show, I was always told the idea that Luffy had the rubber fruit, which basically meant that he was just a guy made out of rubber. Now listen, you can have all your theories about it, that he can stretch his rubber as thin as a rubber band, or he can make his rubber as strong as a tire. I don't care. It felt nice to see that my hero boy from the beginning was always human, and he shows his humanity as simple as him not using his overall superpowers. In all basic points, it's probably due with the fact that they're both endowed with haki, and they're both going at it nullifying any chance of devil fruit powers even being used, which turned the superpowered monkey fight into a boxing ring. But after a simple fight and a change of heart from the main antagonist himself, he's now finally come to see eye to eye with Luffy in regards to him accomplishing his dream of destroying and ridding the world of pirates, understanding that Luffy is a core aspect in making the world a better place, regardless to the fact that he is a pirate. This ultimately culminates in the end of Zeth and the Neo Marines, but it still holds the spirit strong through Luffy, who now understands the weight and the responsibility that Zed has given him in his sacrifice of allowing Luffy to continue to dream. Including the plot thread that honestly didn't really matter that much, the characters age up. When it comes to this movie, the thing that I like about it the most is that Luffy isn't coming to save another island. He's not a traditional hero, not by any account. The only thing that Luffy really cares about is after losing the fight to Zed, getting his straw hat back.
Finally made it, huh? Nice try, but I'm afraid the explosions to shake the final endpoint have already started.
I don't care about your explosions. I'm here to get my hat back, that's all!
A lot of trouble for a hat. Mind telling me what's so important about this thing?
It shows me the way to becoming king of the pirates!